Hey friends, it's Rana and today I'll be going through my read shelf on Goodreads to re-rate all the books that I changed my mind about, whether it is a positive or a negative change of mind. I had this idea for a while now and I thought it would be fun to see how my opinions on books change, and I did a quick YouTube search to see if anyone did this before, and apparently no one did, so it is completely new. I started my Goodreads account back in January of 2016, back when I discovered it for the first time, and I currently have 479 books shelved as read. I'm pretty sure that I read at least 50 books more than that, but I can't remember them because I read them a long time ago. The first few books I have, I read them before I started Goodreads, but shelved them the day I made my account. The first book I have is Animal Farm by George Orwell, and according to my Goodreads, it says that I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. I think it is more of 3.5 out of 5 stars, but Goodreads doesn't have the half-star point system, so I think I'll round it to 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I have is Alf Shams Mushriqa by Khaled Hosseini, or the English title of it is A Thousand Splendid Suns. According to Goodreads, I give it 5 out of 5 stars, and I'll leave it at that. The next 5 books are all by the same author, Dan Brown. I was a huge fan of Dan Brown back in the day. We have The Lost Symbol, The Deception Point, I think the title is in English. Then we have The Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, and Inferno. I give all of them 5 stars, except Deception Point and Inferno are 4 stars. And I won't change the writing for Dan Brown's books right now because I'm planning to reread them soon, because it's been a while since I read anything by him. But I remember that I loved all his books, and I remember every time a translated one of his books comes out, I run and buy it and devour it in less than 2 days. The next book we have is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman with 3 stars out of 5. I read some of Neil Gaiman's books, some I liked, some I found to be mediocre, but this one I can't remember anything about except that it was hella weird, and I don't know if I enjoyed it or not, so I'll leave it at 3 stars out of 5. The next book is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. I give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. As you know, Patrick Ness is one of my favorite authors ever, but this one is one of my least favorite books by him. I don't know if I read it in the wrong time or in the wrong format, because I listened to the audiobook and I found it to be alright. I won't change my rating of it until I reread it, but currently I have the same opinion about this book. It is a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book is a very popular book here on BookTube. It is The Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars and I stand by this rating. I found it to be a little bit overrated, and as my review of this book says, it was very overhyped in my opinion, and I didn't like the characters and felt bored most of the time. I can understand why people like it because of the characters, but I didn't like it that much. It is a 3 stars for me. The next book I have is The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. I gave it 5 stars out of 5 back in the day, but I think it is more of a 4 stars out of 5. It was a really good book, but I don't think now it is 5 out of 5 stars. It is more of a 4. The next book is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I gave it 3 stars out of 5 and I stand by that rating. The next one is All the Light We Cannot See. I love historical fiction books, but I thought that this was a very slow book. When I read it, it took me really long to finish this book. I think it is more of a 3.4 out of 5 stars, but again, we don't have half-star system here, so I'll leave it at 4 stars, but it is more of a 3.5. The next book is The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars and I'll leave it at that because I love this book. It is one of my favorite historical fiction books and I think it deserves all the hype that it receives. The next book is an Arabic book called Al-Fil Al-Azraq by Ahmed Murad, or in English I think the title would be The Blue Elephant. I think most of you are English speaking subscribers and most of you don't read Arabic literature, but long story short, I didn't like this book. I gave it back then 2 out of 5 stars and I think it doesn't worth 2 stars out of 5. It is more of 1 star out of 5. The next book is another book I read in Arabic called Al-Sajina by Malika Ufaqir. I think it was published in English under another name. Let me check. I think it is Stolen Lives. Yeah, it is Stolen Lives. It talks about her story and her family's story. It is a memoir. They spent about 20 years in jail, in prison, in the desert because of her father's attempt to overthrow the king and kill him, the king of Morocco, and he failed. He was assassinated and they were punished because of her father's attempt by being put in jail in the desert and tortured for 20 years. It is very hard book to read and heartbreaking, but I highly recommend it to you. It was 5 stars and it's still 5 stars for me. The next book is Transparent by Natalie Whipple. This book, I borrowed it from one of my friends in college. She had this book and she told me it is very good. I think it was one of my favorite YA books to ever read without even knowing what YA meant back then. I gave it back then 4 out of 5 stars. It was okay. I think if I read it now, it would be more of a 3 stars. So I will lower the rating to 3 stars out of 5. The next book is The Secret, self-help book. I read it back when it was very popular here, and I think it is still popular. I give it 4 out of 5 stars and I'll leave it at that. Next we have the autobiography of Malcolm X. I give it 5 stars. I would still give it 5 stars. I've never even knew who Malcolm X was when I read this book, but it was really eye-opening for me and I learned many things about him. Next we have another Arabic book called Kalila wa Dimna by Abdullah ibn al-Muqaffa. I think it is considered a classic and I read it when I was very, very young. Kalila wa Dimna is a very popular book. It is a collection of short stories, fables about animals. I really enjoyed it when I first read it when I was young. I gave it here 3 out of 5 stars. I don't know why I gave it this rating, but I think it is more of a 4 out of 5 stars for me. I really enjoyed it and I think it is really a good collection of short stories, fables. It is a classic for a reason. The next book is حوار مع صديق الملحد by Mustafa Mahmoud. Another Arabic books. I swear I used to read more Arabic books back in the day, but I stopped. So bear with me a little bit until I finish from re-rating the Arabic books. I give this book 3 out of 5 stars. It is a very short book about how to talk with atheists and I found it to be lacking a little bit, so I give it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book is رجال في الشمس by Ghassan Kanafani. I think it was translated to English under the name Men in the Sun. I gave it 2 stars out of 5, but I think it deserves 3 out of 5 stars. The next book is another Arabic book called الأسود يليق بك by أحلام مستغنامي. I give it 2 out of 5 stars. It is a romance book. I don't know why I even read it, so I'll leave it at 2 out of 5 stars. The next book is قواعد العشق الأربعون by Elif Shafak. I think it is called in English 40 Rules of Love. Yeah, it is 40 Rules of Love. I detest this book and I don't want to talk about it. I hate it a lot. So it is 1 star. Next I have a Prometheus Bound by Aeschylus or Aeschylus. I give it 4 out of 5 stars and I really enjoyed it because I took it in uni in a class and it was very enjoyable. So it is 4 stars for me. And we have The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. I give it 5 stars back then and I still appreciate this book and this series overall because it was my introduction to Greek mythology and my obsession with the Greek mythology started because of it. It grew much bigger than the series, but I still am thankful for it. I give it 5 stars, but I think it is more of a 4 stars out of 5. And we have The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. I think it was my very first time to ever read a YA series from start to finish, and I really enjoyed it. The first book, not that much. It wasn't that good at all. I even was hesitant to complete reading the series because of it. It wasn't that good. So I asked some friends and people on Goodreads if I should continue the series, and they told me it gets way better. So I did, and I'm very happy that I did. It got much, much better than the first book. The first book is on borderline bad but the second and the rest of the books are really good. The second book I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was still a little bit slow for me, but it introduced my two favorite characters in the series, Scarlet and Wolf, and I still like this book, so I'll leave it at 4.5. The third book, Chris, 5 stars, and the fourth book, Winter, also 5 stars, and I'll leave them at that because I really enjoyed the third and fourth book. They were amazing. They picked the series up. Next we have I'll Give You the Sun by Jan D. Nelson. I give it 2 out of 5 stars. And I stand by it. I really dislike this book. It was very hyped on BookTube and some people still talk about it, and I think it's not for me. I didn't like it at all. Since You Have Been Gone by Morgan Matson, I read I think 3 books by Morgan Matson, I can't remember, and I think I didn't enjoy her writing or her stories. I give it a 3 out of 5 stars and I'll leave it at that. At this point, I was reading very popular books on BookTube because I was introduced to BookTube back then, and I started picking every book that people recommend, and I didn't like this book. I read it in Arabic, the translated version in Arabic. It was really good, the translation. The translator did an amazing job, but the story itself and the plotline, the characters, I didn't vibe that much with it, so I give it 2.5 out of 5 stars, as you can see. The next book is Wolf by Wolf. It is a very underrated series, I think, here on BookTube. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. It was really good. It is a historical fiction book with a little bit of shape-shifting and other elements. I think it is very good. It is about a motorcycle race from Germany to Japan, I think. I'm not pretty sure. And the winner of this race gets the prize of meeting Hitler. And the protagonist of this book is trying to win this race to kill him. Very, very good book. Highly recommend it. Next, The Marvels. This is one of the most beautiful books I ever read. From the characters, the plotline, the drawings. It is so beautiful and gorgeous, this book. I give it 5 stars and I stand by that rating. Next is a Korean book called Please Look After Mom by Shin Kyung-suk. I give it 2 stars back then, but I think it is more of 3 stars out of 5, so I'll change it to that. Next, we have another YA series, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I binge read the first 3 books and I didn't like it. The first book, I'll make it 3 stars, not 3.5. The second and third book, I gave 2 stars and I'll leave them at 2 stars because they weren't that good. They were very disappointing. The author screwed it up. Next, we have another popular YA book called Aristotle and Dante Discovered the Secrets of the Universe. I gave it 2 stars. I honestly can't remember anything about this book, and I don't know if this rating it deserves that rating. That's why I'm gonna clear that rating and I won't give it any rating because I can't remember anything, and I think it would be unfair to give it 2 stars when I don't remember anything about it. Next, we have Amy and Roger's Epic Detour by, again, Morgan Matson. I hated that book. I gave it 2 stars. It is more of a 1 stars now. I really didn't like it. At that time, I was forcing myself to read the YA popular books, and I came to find out that YA books, whether they were contemporary or fantasy, most of the time I don't enjoy YA books. Next, we have The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. I give it 4 out of 5 stars, and I think it is a correct rating of this book, so I'll leave it at 4 stars. Next, we have The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Again, another overhyped book. I thought it was okay. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either, so 3 stars. Next, we have And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. My very first Agatha Christie book. I loved it, gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I'll leave it at that. The next book is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. One of my favorite books ever, 5 out of 5 stars. The following book is My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry by Frederick Backman. I think it was my first or second Bachman's book I ever read, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It is one of my favorite works by him. I really enjoyed it. Next is The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars back then. I enjoyed it a lot because I listened to Neil Gaiman himself narrating the book, and he is amazing at narrating his stories. That's why I gave it that high rating. It was a really good book, even though it was middle grade. The next book is Finding Audrey by Sophie Kinsella. I give it 5 stars. I enjoyed it a lot, but I think if I reread it now, it is more of a 4 stars for me. It is one of the rare YA contemporary books that I enjoyed. It doesn't have that high average rating on Goodreads, but I remember enjoying it a lot. Next, we have The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. I give it 5 stars. It is still 5 stars for me, one of my favorite series ever. I enjoyed it a lot. I love it. I love Brandy Sandy, and I will read everything that this man ever writes. Next one is The Strange and Beautiful Souls of Ava Lavender by Leslie Walton. I give it 5 stars. This book is so underrated, and it is one of the most beautiful written books I ever read. The ending really shocked me. I love books with shocking endings. It is my type, so I'll leave it at 5 stars. Next, we have More Than This by Patrick Ness. I read this book this year, but they are putting it with the date that I shelved it as to want to read, not the date I read it. So let's ignore the dates thing here because it is really funky. I read it this year. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoy Patrick Ness books, and this is still 4 out of 5 stars because I read it recently. I didn't change my mind on it yet. Next is The Enchanted by Renee Dinfield. I read it quite a long time ago. I gave it 3 stars. It was really weird and whimsical, and I'll leave it at 3 stars. Next is The Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan, the second book of the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series. I give it 3 stars, and it's still 3 stars for me. The Titan's Curse is also 3 stars. The Battle of the Labyrinth, I think it is 3 stars too. The Last Olympian, I'm not quite sure if 3 stars is the right rating for it, but I think it is. Next, we have Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I enjoyed this book. It was a good book, not a very amazing book. It was alright, it was fun to listen to, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and I'll leave it like that. Next, we have Shatter Me by Tahira Mafi. I give it 2 stars. I hated it, and I'll leave it at 2 stars. Next, we have another YA series called Penryn and the End of Days. I love the series, one of my favorite self-published books. I give the first book 5 stars, the second 5 stars also. I think the first book is one of my favorite first books in a trilogies ever, and I'll leave it at 5 stars. The second book I think is 5 stars too. As you can see, I wrote the series is pure perfection. And the third book I gave 4 stars out of 5, and I think that's accurate. Next, we have If I Stay by Gail Furman. I thought it was okay. It was really boring. I give it 2 stars. I didn't quite hate it, but not for me. Next, we have To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. It was good. I enjoyed reading it, but I don't think it is 4 stars. It is more of a 3, so I'll change it to 3 stars. We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. Unpopular opinion time. I didn't like this book. I found it to be another hyped YA book, so I gave it 2 stars, and I'll leave it at 2 stars. Next, we have Fangirl by Rainbow Owl, another book I picked it up because of the hype. I didn't enjoy it that much back then. I give it 3 stars, and I'll leave it at 3 stars. I didn't like it. The Demigod Files by Rick Riordan, another Rick Riordan book. I was reading everything that man published, so I gave 3 stars. It was alright. Next, we have Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Owl again. I remember liking this book a lot back when I read it, but I don't know why it is receiving so much hate lately, and I'll leave it at that, at 4 stars. Next, we have Legend by Marie Lu. I read this in 2020. Again, it is shelved in 2016. Ignore that again. I really disliked it. The beginning of the first book was really good, but then everything went downhill. I'll leave it at 2 stars. Next we have The Glass Castle by Janet Walls with 4 out of 5 stars as a rating. I remember enjoying listening to this audiobook a lot, and I'll leave it at 4 stars. Next we have My Heart and Other Black Holes by Jasmine Warqa. Can't remember much of it, to be frank with you. I give it 2 stars and I'll leave it at that. P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han, the second book to the All the Boys I've Loved Before series. Here it says that I give it 4 stars, and I can't remember if I enjoyed it that much. It is more of a 3 stars, so I'll change it to 3. Next we have Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. I enjoyed the first half of this book a lot. It was like 5 stars, the first half, but after she became a geisha, I really disliked that part, and I would give it 2 stars, but overall the book is a solid 3 stars. Next we have عداء الطائرة الورقية by Khaled Hosseini, or in English The Kite Runner. I give it 4 out of 5 stars, and I think it is more of a 5. I love this book. I can't remember why I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, but it is a 5 stars, so I'll change it to that. Next is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it a lot, and I'll leave it at 4 stars. And we have also The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien with 4 stars, or as my review say, 3.75 out of 5 stars. I think it is more of a 4. Next we have my most hated classic, The Catcher in the Rye. I give it 1 star, and I would have given it less if it was possible, but it is 1 star after all. We have Still Alice by Lisa Genova, one of my favorite books. It talks about Alzheimer, and it talked about it in a very realistic way that it really stayed with me, and I can still remember some parts of the book. That's why I'll leave it at 5 stars. Next we have The Storyteller by Jodi Picoult. I gave it 4 stars back then. I think it is more of a 3 right now, so I'll change it to 3. The Running Dream, an amazing book. Still 5 stars. Of Mice and Men, also still 3 stars. I won't change it. Next is an Arabic book, ساق البامبو by Saud Senhoussi. It was translated in English to The Bamboo Stalk. Yeah. I give it 5 stars. It was one of my favorite books in Arabic literature. Another book by the same author, فئران أمي حصة, or in English, wait a minute, Mama Hissa's Mice by Saud Senhoussi. Amazing author. I love these 2 books by him, and I give it 4 stars out of 5. Next, Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys, 5 stars. The Golem and the Jinni, 4 stars. ورددت جبال الصدى, and The Mountain Echoed by Khaled Hosseini, 4 stars. Snowflower and the Secret Fan, I give it a 3 stars, but I think it is more of a 2.5, but I'll leave it at 3 stars. The Diviners by Libba Bray, I gave it a 3 stars the first time I read it, and I think that is accurate. It is a good book. I didn't hate it, but I don't think I'm gonna continue reading the series, unless if you convinced me that the rest of the series is better than the first book. Next is another classic, The Outsider, and I give it 2 stars out of 5. I honestly can't remember anything about this book either. To be fair with this book, I'm gonna clear the rating, and if I read it anytime in the future, I'll give it a new rating, but I don't think I'm gonna reread it again. Next is First They Killed My Father, A Daughter of Cambodia Remembers, a very, very good memoir. I give it 4 stars. I think I would give it 5 stars now. I think it is an amazing book, and it stayed in my mind for quite a long time. Jane Eyre, 4 stars, and I'll leave it at 4 stars. Forgive Me, Leonard Peacock, 2 stars. I really disliked this book. The first half of the book was good, but the rest was... No. 1984 by George Orwell. I give it 3 stars, and I'll leave it at that because it is one of the most depressing, boring books I ever read. I know it is a classic and it is important, but I didn't enjoy my time reading it. We Should All Be Feminists, 5 stars. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, 3 stars. Arabic book about history called حقبة من التاريخ. I'll leave it at 4 stars. The Yellow Wallpaper, I don't know why it doesn't has any rating, but I think it is 4 stars for me. Macbeth by William Shakespeare, 4 stars. I really liked Nakbeth. أقوى مقيلة by Musa Sultan al-Musa, another Arabic book about mythology. I give it 4 stars, but when I look back at it, I think it was a little bit lacking, so I'll give it 3 stars. The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian, I give it 3 stars. I found it to be a good book. I learned some things about Native Americans in America right now and the hardships that they go through. Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. I give it 3 stars, but honestly, I didn't even understand 90% of the book and I didn't like it, so I'll give it 2 stars. All the Bright Places, I didn't like this book. I gave it 2 stars. And I'll leave it at 2 stars. Nimona by Noelle Stevenson, one of my favorite graphic novels, 5 stars. The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer by Michelle Hodkin, one of my favorite series back when I first read it. I don't think it deserves 5 stars still. It is more of a 4 stars. The first book is one of my favorite books ever. I think it has some problems when I think about it, but I enjoyed it a lot when I first read it. Anya's Ghost, a graphic novel, 4 stars. In Real Life, another graphic novel, another 4 stars. Adulthood is a Myth by Sarah Anderson, 5 stars. I love Sarah's works and I will read everything she published. She always makes me laugh. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, a very sad classic. I give it 4 stars. Flipped, 4 stars. Cute and quick read. استرداد عمر من السيرة للمسيرة by Ahmed Khairi al-Umari, an Arabic book about one of most important Muslim figures in history called Umar bin Khattab. A great book. I gave it 4 stars out of 5. Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda. Unpopular opinion here. I didn't enjoy it that much. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The Evolution of Mara Dyer. I think it is more of a 4, so I'll change it to 4 stars. A Man Called Uva by Frederick Backman, 4 stars. The Stonekeeper, a graphic novel. I think it is a very good graphic novel, but it is a little bit long. I read the first 2 books of it, and one day I'll continue reading it. The Snow Child, 4 stars. The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I understand why people like this series, but I didn't love it as much as everyone. Next we have The Retribution of Mara Dyer, the 3rd and final book in that trilogy. I gave it 5 stars out of 5 back then, but now I'm gonna lower it to 4 stars. I still love this trilogy, but I don't think it deserves full 5 stars. Then we have Electra by Euripides, a classical play. I give it 3 out of 5 stars and I'd leave it like that. Mouse, a graphic novel, 4 out of 5 stars. Night, I give it 3 stars and I'll leave it like that. Next we have The Princess Bride by William Goldman. I think I listened to an abridged audiobook version of this book. That's why I didn't like it and gave it 2 stars, because I found it to be very short and I didn't understand the whole story. That's why I gave it 2 stars, but I think now I'm gonna clear the rating until I find a full audiobook of that book. Then we have A Long Walk to Water, a book based on a true story set in Africa. I really enjoyed that book and I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I won't talk much about the books that I didn't change my mind on. I'll just tell you the rating without changing it. Number the Stars by Lois Lowry, 3 stars. The Princess Saves Herself in this one, 3 stars. The Grand Mosque of Paris, 4 stars. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, I give it 5 stars out of 5. I really enjoyed that book when I read it, but I think it is more of a 4 stars, not 5 stars. Next we have Everything by Nicola Yoon. I gave it 4 stars when I first read it. I really enjoyed it because I buddy read it with a friend and I found it to be a really good book, especially that it is a YA contemporary book, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was a cute book, but I think it is more of a 3, that's why I lowered its rating to 3 stars. Next we have a very popular middle grade called Wonder. I gave it 4 stars and I'll leave it like that. Then we have Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I give it 5 stars. Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, another 5 stars. Another favorite. Then we have another Frederick Backman book, Brit Marie Was Here. I give it 3 stars. I think it is my least favorite book by him. Then we have Winger by Andrew Smith. I read this book and it was a little bit disgusting when I read it. It has many problematic things in it. I give it 2 stars out of 5, but I think it is more of a 1 star, so I'm gonna lower it to 1 star. Then we have Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, 4 stars. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, 5 stars. It is my personal favorite in the series. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, 5 stars. Next we have 11/22/63 by Stephen King. When I first read this book last year, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because I had some issues with it regarding the sudden introduction of romantic interest in the story that I wasn't expecting from a Stephen King book, and it took a good chunk of the book, the romance interest and the romance story. That's why I didn't give it full 5 out of 5 stars. But when I think about it, I enjoyed that book a lot to give it 5 out of 5 stars, even if I didn't enjoy the romance element in it. So I'm gonna pump it up to 5 stars. Then we have Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, the 5th book in the series, and my least favorite one. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. And I stick with that rating. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, I give it 4 stars. The Lorax by Dr. Seuss, I give it 4 stars. All the Places You Will Go, 5 stars. Then we have Bird Box by Josh Millerman. If you are not new here, you know that Bird Box is one of my all-time favorite books, and I give it 5 stars, and I'll leave it with 5 stars. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the last book in the series, I gave it 5 stars last year when I reread it, but I think it is more of a 4. I'll make sure of my rating for each book in the Harry Potter series when I do my annual rereading of it in a couple of months. The Tales of Beedle the Bard, I give it 3 stars. Matilda, 4 stars. Next we have a poetry book called Love and Misadventure. I give it a 2 out of 5 stars. It is one of the worst poetry books I ever read. I think I'm gonna lower it to 1 stars. Then we have Out of the Easy by Ruta Sepetys, one of my favorite authors, but I think this one is my least favorite book by her. So I'm gonna lower it to 3 stars. And I think I gave it 4 stars just because Ruta is one of my favorite authors, not because I really enjoyed the book. Then we have No Matter the Wreckage by Sarah Kay, one of my favorite poetry books. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I think it is more of a 4.5, but I'll leave it at 4 stars. Then we have Persepolis, a memoir in the format of a graphic novel. I had many issues with this book and I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars, and I won't change that. Next we have a very unpopular opinion here on BookTube, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. As you see, I gave it 5 stars out of 5. I read it, I think, the day it was released, and I devoured it in less than a day, and I really enjoyed it. I give it 5 stars, but I don't think it deserves 5 stars. It is like 4 stars for me. I know many of you gave it 1 stars, but I don't know why. I really enjoyed reading it. It was fun for me. Then we have the Summer Trilogy by Jenny Han. I give the first book 4 stars, the second 3 stars, and the last book 1 star. I'm gonna lower the rating for the first 2 books. I'm gonna give the first one 3 stars, the second one 2 stars, and I'll leave the third one with 1 star. We have The Giving Tree. I give it 5 stars. I love this book. The Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, I give it a 3 stars. I think it is more of a 2 if I'm being quite honest. Then we have one of my most hated books, Where Things Come Back. I really hate this book. I give it 1 stars and I won't change it. Next we have The Becoming of Noah Shaw, the first book in the Shaw Confessions series, the companion series to Mara Dyer, which I really enjoyed, but this one was really bad, like really bad. I didn't have the heart to give it less than 4 stars because of how much I enjoyed the Mara Dyer trilogy, so I'm gonna lower it to 3 stars. It is more of a 2.5 out of 5 stars, but I'll leave it at 3 stars. Then we have another unpopular opinion, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars and I won't change that. I really disliked this book and found it to be very overhyped. المهمة غاندي محرر المقهورين, a book about Gandhi. I give it 3 out of 5 stars. Go Ask Alice. I give it 2 stars. أنا ملالة or I Am Malala, a really great book. I give it 5 stars. Every Heart a Doorway, one of my all-time favorite books. I give it 5 stars. Giant Days, a very entertaining graphic novel about a group of friends in uni. I really enjoyed it. Give the first volume 4 out of 5 stars, and I'll leave it like that. The Arrival, an amazing graphic novel. I really enjoyed it. I think it is more of a 5 stars for me, so I'm gonna pump it up to 5 stars. Then we have Giant Days Volume 2. I think it is more of a 4 stars, not 3 stars. Giant Days Volume 3, same thing. I'm gonna raise it to 4 stars. Citizen, I give it 3 stars, and I'll leave it like that. Kaku Kaku Shikajika, it is a manga. I think its English name is Blank Canvas. I love this manga and gave it 5 stars. Kaku Kaku Shikajika Volume 2, 3, 4, and 5. All of them are 5 stars for me. Another one of my favorite mangas, Teasing Master Takagi-san, Volume 1 and 2, I give them 5 stars. I used to add my favorite mangas to Goodreads, but I stopped doing that because I wanted to only add real books on my Goodreads, and I read a lot of mangas that I thought will mess up my read shelf on Goodreads, so I stopped doing that. Kindred Spirits by Rainbow Rowell. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars, and I'll leave it like that. Next we have Fairest, a novella in the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. I really enjoyed this one. I give it 4 out of 5 stars, even though it wasn't much loved by the fandom, but I liked how dark it was. And we have Origin by Dan Brown, the most recent published book by him. I really dislike this book. I gave it 2.75 out of 5, and I'll leave it like that. And I don't understand how Danny Brown wrote the same books that I loved and then wrote this one. Then we have a beloved manga here on BookTube, Orange. I read it because of BookTube and I found it to be really good. Gave it 4 stars. Stars above, another Lunar Chronicles novella, 4 stars. Glitches, The Queen's Army, and Little Android all are short stories in the Lunar Chronicles, and all of them I gave 3 stars. Then we have Harry Potter the prequel. I gave it 3 stars. It was like 2 pages or 3 pages. I would have preferred back then if it was longer, but I don't care anymore, even if she published a prequel. Orange Volume 2, 5 stars. 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I read it before the TV show was out and before it was a thing and everyone was raving about it, but the book was really bad and I didn't enjoy it. I really hated it and I gave it 2 stars. I didn't watch the TV show and I won't. Milk and Honey, the most overhyped poetry book in the history of mankind. I really hate this book and I give it 1 star out of 5. It is not the type of poetry that I enjoy. It is very temporary. Where White Things Are, 4 stars. When Breath Becomes Air, 5 stars. This book was very impactful for me and I really enjoyed it and want more people to read it. Today Means Amen, a poetry book that I didn't enjoy, 2 stars. Then we have these 3 books that were published on Pottermore. I gave the first book, Hogwarts, 4 stars. It is more of a 3. The shorter stories from Hogwarts, 4 stars. I'm gonna lower it to 4 stars. Then we have the short stories, the third one, I gave it to 3 stars. A graphic novel called This One Summer, I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars. I Hate My Selfie by Shane Dawson. I didn't give a rating to this book and I won't. Then we have Attachments by Rainbow Rowell, one of my favorite books by her. I gave it 5 stars when I first read it. I'm gonna lower it to 4 stars now and I still like it. I still think it was a fun, entertaining read. Then we have Heartless by Marissa Meyer. I give it 5 out of 5 stars. It is a retelling of The Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland. I think it is more of a 4 stars. I think it dragged at some parts, but I still enjoyed it. Then we have The Lies of Locke Lamora, a new favorite book for me. I really love this book. I finished it a couple of days ago and it was mind-blowing for me. I really loved it. It will be one of my favorite fantasy books of all times. I don't know why Goodreads doesn't have a rating for it, even though I did rate it. So I'm gonna give it 5 stars that it deserves. Then we have another very unpopular opinion here, The Hate You Give. I gave it 2 stars. I didn't enjoy it. The idea behind the book is very important, but I didn't like the writing style nor the main character star. She was hella annoying. so I'm gonna leave it at 2 stars. Then we have Risky Words and the Shovel. I give it 4 stars. It is another poetry collection. Blankets, a graphic novel that I hate, and I gave it 1 star. My True Love Gave to Me, I gave 3 stars. The Best We Could Do, an amazing graphic novel, I give it 4 stars. Last Stop on Market Street, 4 stars. I think it is more of a 3. The Hunger Games, the first book, 5 stars. Shit My Dad Says, 3 stars. Catching Fire, 4 stars. Mockingjay, 4 stars. But I think Mockingjay is more of a 3 for me. وحدة الليل, a poetry collection in Arabic, I give it 5 stars. I really love this book. Down Among the Sticks and Bones, the second book in the Wayward Children series, I give it 4 stars. The Yellow Wallpaper, the Penguin Black edition, it has 3 stories in it. I give the average rating of all of them 4.5 out of 5 stars. Never Let Me Go, I give it 2 stars. The Red Tree, 5 stars. My Not So Perfect Life, 3 stars. Destroy Me, a novella in the Shatter Me series, I give 2 stars. It is more of a 1. Unravel Me, the second book in the series, I gave it 3 stars, but I'm gonna lower it to 2 stars. The only good thing in the Shatter Me series is Kenji. Everything else was terrible. Steal Like an Artist, 4 stars. Persepolis Volume 2, 1 star. يد القادمة من القفقاز, an Arabic book about people from Circassia and how they immigrated to the Arab countries because of the hardships that they went through in their countries because of Russia. I gave it 5 stars. Digital Fortress by Dan Brown, 3 stars. I'm the Messenger, 5 stars. I think it is more of a 4. I'm the Messengers, so I'm gonna lower it a bit to 4 stars. The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan, I gave it 4 stars, but I'm gonna lower it to 3 stars. Oedipus Rex, one of my all-time favorite play, I gave it 5 stars. Teaching My Mother How to Give Birth, another poetry book that I disliked, I gave it 1 star. The Little Book of Skincare, a book about Korean skincare, I give it 5 stars, but I'm gonna lower it to 4. The Son of Neptune, I gave it 4 stars, but I'm gonna lower it to 3. The Mark of Athena, I think I enjoyed this one the most, and I gave it 4 stars, or 4.5. Big Mushy Happy Lump, I gave it 4 stars. The Lottery, a short story by Shirley Jackson, 4 stars. The House of Hades, I give 4 stars, but I think it is more of a 3. Wires and Nerves, a graphic novel by Marissa Meyer, I give 4 stars. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, the screenplay of the movie, I didn't really like it at all, the screenplay, so I'm gonna give it 2 stars, not 3. I'm gonna lower it. And Every Morning, The Way Home Gets Longer and Longer by Frederick Backman. I really love this book by him, and I give it 5 stars. The Blood of Olympus, I give 3.5 to 3.75, but it is more of a 3 for me now. I Want to Know Why, another short story, 2 stars. Dr. Faustus, 3 stars. I read these short stories for uni. The Good, the Bad, and the Bullied, a book that I read on Wattpad, I give it 3.5. I'm gonna lower it to 3 stars. Our Numbered Days, a poetry book, another one, I give it 2.5, but I'm gonna lower it to 2. Salt by Nayira Waheed, one of my favorite poetry books, I give it 5 stars and will always give it 5 stars. Dangerous Girls, a very loved mystery thriller book here on BookTube, and unsurprisingly enough, I hated it and gave it 2 stars. Fahrenheit 451, I give it 4 stars. Nejma, another poetry book by Nayira Waheed, I gave it 3 stars. Always and Forever Lara Jean, I give it 4 stars, but I think it is less than that, it is like 3. Goodnight Moon, 4 stars. Charlotte's Web, 3 stars. Caroline by Neil Gaiman, I give it 4 stars, but I'm gonna lower it to 3 stars. The movie was way better than the book. Giant Days, Volume 5, 3 stars. Percy Jackson's Greek Gods, 5 stars. I'm gonna lower it to 4 stars. It was fun and funny, but I'm gonna lower it to 4 stars. The Underground Railroad, I give it 3 stars, but I think it is more of a 3.5, but I'm not gonna pump it up to 4. It is more of a 3.5. Next we have Homegoing. I really love this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It is a very amazing book and I really enjoyed it, but I didn't like the ending. I felt it was a little bit weak and it could have been better than that. But I'm gonna pump it up to 5 stars because I loved all the book except the underwhelming ending. I'm giving it 5 stars. The book deserves it, even if the ending I didn't enjoy. The Hidden Oracle by Rick Riordan is where my relationship with Rick Riordan ended. I stopped really caring about his books because they have the same format and the same way he writes in every book. So I gave it a 2.5 stars, and it is the last book I ever read by him. Landline by Rainbow Rowell, my least favorite one by her. I gave it 3 stars, but I'm gonna lower it to 2. I didn't really like that book. The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book a lot and I found it to be very well written, but I didn't give it 5 stars because of some issues with the pacing of the plot. Dog Songs by Mary Oliver, another poetry book that I didn't enjoy. Bear with me, I read a lot of poetry books just to find the poetry books that I enjoy, and 90% of the time I hate what I read from modern poetry. سحر الترتيب by Marie Kondo, or the life-changing magic of tidying. I give it 3 stars. I thought it was a little bit unrealistic. To the Women I Once Loved, a poetry book that I actually enjoyed and gave it 4 stars. Silent Child, a mystery thriller book that I really disliked and gave it 2 stars. I even have a rant review for it. Beneath the Sugar Sky, the 3rd book in the Wayward Children series, I gave it 4 stars. Why do I have so many editions of the yellow wallpaper? The heck? Chasers of the Light, another poetry book, I gave it 3 out of 5. The Giver by Louis Lowry, I really enjoyed this book and gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. But if I think about it, I can pump it up to 5 stars because I enjoyed it that much. Mouse, the 2nd volume, I gave it 3 stars. The Bad Beginning, the 1st book in a series of unfortunate events by Luminous Snicket, I gave it 4 stars. Northern Lights, I gave 3 stars. I didn't enjoy it that much. Gathering Blue, the 2nd book in the Giver series, I gave it 4 stars. Messenger, the 3rd one, I gave 3 stars. And the last one, Sun, I gave also 3 stars. The Stonekeeper's Curse, the 2nd volume, I gave 4 stars. One of Us is Lying, I gave 3.5. I don't know why. I think it is more of a 3. The Kind Worth Killing, a mystery thriller book, I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Giant Days, volume 6, I gave 4 stars. Men and Gods, a book about Greek mythology, I gave 4 stars, but I think it is more of a 3, so I'm gonna lower it to 3. From Here to Eternity, a book by Caitlin Doughty, I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I think I'm gonna round this one up to 5 stars. Rose Colored Windows, a poetry book. I think I'm the only one who read and rated it on Goodreads, and I give it 3 stars. I'm gonna lower it to 2 stars. It wasn't that good, but I felt bad giving it low rating when I am the only one who read it on Goodreads. The Great Alone by Kirsten Hanna, I give this one 4 stars. It is more of a 4.5, but I'm gonna leave it at 4 stars. Eliza and Her Monsters, I really enjoyed this one and gave it 4 stars. My Life Next Door, I give it 3 stars, and I can't remember much of it, so I'll leave it at 3 stars. The Perks of Being a Wallflower, 3 stars. Before We Were Yours, 5 stars, one of my favorite books of 2020. Through the Woods, a graphic novel, I give it 4 stars. It is more of a 3 stars. Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys, I give it 5 stars. I love her books, especially this one and Salt to the Sea. The Four Agreements, I gave 4 stars. Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep, I gave it 5 stars. I really liked it. It is a short poem. The Girl from the Other Side, Volume 1 by Nagabi. It is a manga that I got introduced to last year, and I read, I think, 7 volumes from it, and I really love it. So I gave it 4 stars, but I think I'm gonna pump it up to 5 stars. The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness, I gave it 5 stars, and I'll leave it with 5 stars because I really love this book and I think it is underhyped and underappreciated. The Fault in Our Stars by John Green, 3 stars. Herding Cats by Sarah Anderson, 5 stars. I love her. The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe, I give 3 stars. Mouthful of Forevers, another poetry book, 2 stars. The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, 3 stars. Eleanor Elephant is completely fine. I gave it 3 stars, but I think about it every now and then, and I think it is worth 4 stars, so I'm gonna round it up to 4 stars. In an Absent Dream by Shannon McGuire, the 4th book in the Wayward Children series, and I give it 5 stars because I love this book so much. The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, another 5 stars. Hyperpole and a Half, 3 stars. The Devil and Tom Walker, 3 stars. Helium by Rudy Francisco, another poetry book that I adore, and I give it 5 stars. Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, I give 3 stars. I didn't enjoy it that much. Then we have Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. I gave it 2 stars out of 5. And I was as shocked as you when I read it because I thought I'm gonna love it because I love most of the movie adaptation of this book, but I found the book to be really mediocre and weird. His Day is Done, a Nelson Mandela tribute. I didn't give it any rating. Then we have Sea Prayer by Khaled Hosseini. 5 out of 5 stars, one of my favorite reads of 2020. Then we have The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, another unpopular opinion here. I give it 2 stars. I didn't enjoy it at all, and not as much as everyone else. The Man He Killed, another short story I read for uni, 2 stars. Ode to a Nightingale by John Keats, 4 stars. It is a poem. مغامرة العقل الأولى by Firas Sawah, or The Mind's First Adventure, 5 out of 5 stars. I even have a review for it. Pachinko by Lee Min-jin, I give it 3 stars. Shadow and Bone, the first book, I give 2 stars. I didn't enjoy it. Siege and Storm, I give 3 stars. And the final book, Rune and Rising, 2 stars. Never Word Wake, I give 4 stars, but I think it is more of a 3, so I'm gonna lower it. The Witch Doesn't Burn, in this one, I give it 2 stars. The Caius Walking trilogy by Patrick Ness, the first 2 books, The Knife of Never Letting Go and The Ask and the Answer, both got 5 stars from me. Then we have 2 short stories, The New World and The Wide Sea. The 2 short stories are also for the Caius Walking, and I give the New World 3 stars and The Wide Sea 4 stars. And the 3rd book in the trilogy, Monsters of Men's, got also 5 stars from me. The short story Snowscape, I gave 3 stars. Lumberjane Volume 1 and 2, I gave 4 stars. Stolen, I gave it 4 stars. Long Way Down, I gave 4 stars. 100 Steps by Suzanne E., a very short story, I gave it 5 stars. Crooked Kingdom, the 2nd book of the Sex of Crows duology, I gave it 3 stars. I honestly think this series is very loved on BookTube, and I understand why people love it, but it is not my cup of tea. Clockwork Angel, the 1st book in the Infernal Devices series, I gave it 4 stars out of 5. I enjoyed that one a lot. Then we have Clockwork Prince, the 2nd book, I give it 3 stars, but I'm gonna give it now 2 stars. And the 3rd and final book that ruined everything for me is Clockwork Princess. I really hated this book and I gave it originally 2 stars. I'm gonna give it now 1 star because I hated it so much. All System Red, I gave 3 stars. The Last Time I Lied, I gave 3 stars. Then we have 3 books that I read long time ago in Arabic and I can't remember much of them, so I will leave them without rating. Giant Days Volume 7, 8 and 9 all got 4 stars from me. The Emperor's Soul by Brandon Sanderson, it is my very first Sanderson's read and I enjoyed it a lot and gave it 4 stars. If We Were Villains, I give it 4 stars. Iron by Iron is a novella for the Wolf by Wolf duology and I give it 3 stars. Blood for Blood is the 2nd book in the duology and I gave it 4 stars. Giant Days Volume 10, I didn't enjoy this volume and I gave it 3 stars because there was a change in the art style that wasn't that appreciated. Love by Madula Pina, I give 4 stars. Fantastic Beasts, The Crime of Grindelwald, the screenplay. Again, I found out that I really don't like reading screenplays and I gave it 2 stars. Sadie by Courtney Summers, I love this book. I love the audiobook and I gave it 5 stars. Undead Girl Gang, I gave 2 stars. The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, 3 stars. Hostage, 3 stars. We have a book called Hamam Ad-Dar, a book in Arabic by Saud Sanosi. I didn't enjoy this one. I gave it 2 stars. Then we have 19 Days. It is like a manhwa, Chinese manhwa that I read online and I love a lot. And I give it 5 stars. Heartstopper Volume 1, I give 3 stars. Giant Days Volume 11, I gave 4 stars. Come Tumbling Down, my least favorite book in the Wayward Children series, and I give it 3 stars. This Is Going to Hurt, 5 stars. Pumpkinheads, 4 stars. The Will of Ascension, the second book in the Mistborn series, I didn't enjoy it as much as the first and third book in the series, and I gave it 3 stars, but I think it is more of a 4. I wasn't appreciating it that much, but I really love the series, so I'm gonna pump it up to 4 stars. The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, the first time I read it, I give it 4 stars, but I reread it recently and gave it 5 stars. But I don't know why Goodreads didn't change the rating, so here we go. Then we have The Hero of Ages, the third and final book of the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. I think this book is my favorite finale to any series I ever read. I really love this ending. The Turn of the Key, 4 stars, but I think it is more of a 3, so I'm gonna lower it. Lock Every Door, 3 stars. Maybe You Should Talk to Someone, one of my favorite books of 2020. I gave it 5 stars. Lord of the Flies, 3 stars. Pyongyang, A Journey in North Korea, I gave it 3 stars. The Dream Thieves, the second book in the Raven Cycle series, I gave 3 stars. Two Can't Keep a Secret, I gave 3 stars, but I think it is more of a 2, so 2 it is. The Diary of a Young Girl, I gave 2 stars. I didn't like it. I know what Anne Frank went through is terrible, but the book itself, I'm rating the book itself, not her life, not herself. I'm rating it 2 stars. The Poet X, I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars, but I think I enjoyed it more. I will give it 4 stars now. Stargirl, 2.5 stars. One by Sarah Crossan, I give 3 stars, but I'm gonna give it now 4 stars. I think it was a really good book. Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs, another Caitlin Doughty book, I give it 5 stars. Wayward Son by Rainbow Rowell, the sequel to Carry On, I really dislike this book, and I think I'm not gonna continue the series, and I think it is more of a 1 star, not 2 stars. The Time Traveler's Wife, I gave 3 stars. Little Moments of Love, 3 stars. Quiet Girl in a Noisy World, 4 stars. Mythos, another favorite of 2020, I gave 5 stars. Everything I Never Told You, 3 stars. Again, not much I'll change in the next 3 pages, but if you want to sit and see my rating for these books, you are welcome. The Help, 5 stars, another favorite of 2020. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, it was a reread, so I have another edition of it here. 5 stars. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, it is 4 stars as we said earlier. Kafka on the Shore, 3 stars. I really disliked this book. It started very well, then everything went downhill. Pet Sematary by Stephen King, 4 stars. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, 4 stars. Giant Days, volume 14, the last volume in the Giant Days graphic novel, I give it 4 stars. Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, 5 stars. The Family Upstairs, 3 stars, but I think I'm gonna lower it to 2 stars. Little Fires Everywhere, 4 stars. Then we have the Holy Book of Quran. I read this book every year, but I won't give it any rating because I think it is inappropriate to give holy books ratings. The Long Walk by Richard Bachman, i.e. Stephen King, 2 stars. Prodigy and Champion, book 2 and 3 in the Legend series, I really dislike them and gave them 2.5 and 2 stars out of 5. Across the Green Grass Fields by Shannon McGuire, the 6th and most recent book in the Wayward Children, I give 5 stars. The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune, I give 5 stars, and it is one of my favorite books of 2020. By Gunbad's Prose by Mackenzie Lee, I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I think I'm gonna lower it to 3 stars. No Exit by Taylor Adams, I give it 3 stars, but I'm gonna change it to 4 stars. Peter Pan, I give it 4 out of 5 stars. The Girl from the Other Side, volume 2, I give 4 stars. Shifret Bila, 3 stars, and I have a review for it. I'm Thinking of Ending Things, 4 stars. The Girl from the Other Side, volume 3, 4 stars. The Girl from the Other Side, volume 4, 4 stars. Home Before Dark, 3 stars. The Girl from the Other Side, volume 5, 6 and 7, 4, 4, 4, 4. The Prince and the Dressmaker, 4 stars. Mallory, 4 stars, but it is more of a 3.5. Smile, a graphic novel, 2 stars. They Called Us Enemy, 5 stars. The Vanishing Half, 3 stars. The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, 2 stars. Thinner, 2 stars. Parabellum, 3 stars. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, 3 stars. Again But Better, 3 stars. The Cycle of the Werewolf, 3 stars. Riding the Bullet, 2 stars. Carrie, 4 stars. Elevation, 4 stars. Lowry, 4 stars. My Heart, 4 stars. Miseries, 4 stars. The Institution, 4 stars. Green Days Bottoms, Golden Box, 3 stars. If My Body Could Speak, 2 stars. Sync, 3 stars. Other Words for Home, 4. The Guest List, 3. Don't Call Us Dead, 3. The Umbrella Academy Volume 1, 3 stars. Odes to Lithium, 2 stars. The Empress of Salt and Fortune, 4 stars. On the Horizon, 5 stars. The Umbrella Academy Volume 2, 4 stars. Poems for the End of the World, 4 stars. The Umbrella Academy, 2 stars. Sheets, 5 stars. Educated and The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse, both of them got 5 stars from me, and they are both my favorite books of 2020. Drawing Portraits for the Absolute Beginner, 4 stars. Sleeping Giants, 3 stars. Someone We Know, 2 stars. Delegates, 5 stars. I'll Fly Away, 4 stars. Know My Name, 4 stars, but it is 4.5 out of 5 stars. Bastard, 4 stars. Kim Ji-young, born 1982, 5 stars. The Bell Jar, 2 stars. Shine Your Icy Crown, 4 stars. 10 Arguments for Deleting Your Social Media Accounts Right Now, 4 stars. Anne of Green Gable, a graphic novel, 5 stars. Station 11, 4 stars. This Is How You Lose the Time War, 4 stars. Men We Raped, a memoir, 4 stars. One to Watch, 2 stars. The Nickel Boys, 3 stars. The Winner's Curse, 4 stars. The Winner's Crime and The Winner's Kiss, 3 stars. Catherine House, 2 stars. Radio Silence, 4 stars. The Prophet, a reread, 5 stars. Daisy Jones and the Six, 1 star, and I hated it. Oedipus at Colonist, 3 stars. There Will Come a Darkness, 3 stars. The Henna Artist, 3.5. A Song of Praise and Ruin, 3 stars. I think I've been sitting here for a while now re-rating all the books that I ever read, and the word star now doesn't sound like a word anymore because I repeated it so many times. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I think at the end of the video it was a little bit boring because I didn't change much of the rating, but I hope you enjoyed this video nonetheless. Please subscribe to see my future videos, and I will see you next time. Bye!